Hello world of YouTube. Across this pilgrimage of 2015 reflections that I plan to do throughout the year, I had realized that there were a handful of bands that I got into in 2015 that have still stuck with me 10 years later as standing amongst some of my personal favorites. And today's subject on these reflections is actually the debut of one of those bands, and not the one that's standing behind me. It's in fact the other one that's standing behind me, because their debut dropped back in January, but I think, while it may be a little early in spring to talk about it, it's a record that feels perfect for this time of year as things really start to heat up, to light a fire under you and add some intensity to drive you through the warmer months with its, particular brand of production that fits the time well. It's a release that I think still stands on its own as a fantastic step forward for the group, even if they built upon those foundations tenfold and reached some really great heights as musicians. Let's take a look back on the debut from hardcore band Turnstile, Nonstop Feeling.
Yeah, don't need the future, don't need the past. Inside it now, louder than the world with what we got.
Now, even if they've only dropped 2 other releases and they still have, roots in hardcore music, they haven't gone super far off the stylistic deep end. When looking back at Nonstop Feeling, you can already see where they've grown from here and how they've refined their style into something that I think is just so well concocted. Namely the production, obviously. This has the first album rawness that I just talked about really neutering a band like Every Time I Die, but I don't think it does so quite as intensely for these guys. Some things, namely their guitars, really have a sound here that they do nothing but build upon magnificently, and I think are the biggest standout on here. I love the drums, and I think that the drum stuff on here is just as punchy as ever. That drop at the beginning of Gravity, I think starts this record off like a cinder block to the face wonderfully. I think they help drive with that same punchiness on tracks like Blue Bayou and Drop equally so. To look back on a track like Blue Bayou, that's a prime example of like that rawness setting back some of the highs that they would even improve upon just on Time and Space, but master on Glow On when it comes to vocal production and letting their hooks really sing. That's a hugely melodic driven song, and I think that like the lead vocals are kind of nice, but one of the comparisons I gave to this record in particular when it came out was like a cocktail of Jane's Addiction and Rage Against the Machine. It's very early 90s hardcore, but like has those twists that give it their own sort of like defined adaptions within the nostalgic view it's sort of working with. Same can be said for Gravity. I love Gravity. I think it's got a really strong hook, but its hook is kind of set back underneath the production. That's less a factor on tracks like Addicted and Phased Out because they are much more aggro-driven. I mean, Addicted is one of the short whirlwind, more punk-driven songs, but it's got some refrain play still in its songwriting. It's just, it fits better in this hardcore edge because that raw sound already feels so well tapped into, and I think, again, production-wise, their ideas help accent those attributes more. But even outside of that, there's just a core here that is still strong as fuck. That guitar solo on Phased Out, the instrumental touch on Bleached Temple, there's some magic in those sounds that really resonated with me upon early listens, but still stick with me as like true strengths. Even if they're in a less refined state, they still shine nonetheless. One part of their sound that I think is more emboldened on here, considering they definitely did less on Time and Space and even less on Glow On, is that cadence that their vocalist had on here when it came to like almost sounding like an aggro rapper from the early 90s, like on Bring It Back or on Can't Deny It. When I threw Rage Against the Machine comparisons in my one sentence listening log review back in the day, it's from tracks like that. They definitely help round out that nostalgic twist that like their iconography also helps lean into to evoke that early 90s energy that I do think they do masterfully on this debut. It's why I love it so much. But again, kind of feel like parts of their inspiration that they've shed in pieces when refining their sound that I think help this record stay in its own lane as a piece of time that shouldn't be forgotten. I also love that they take the time in this breezy listen to let their rage stew and build up and bubble into this explosion like on Out of Rage, a song that helps sort of catapult the album into its last stretch fantastically. I gave it 8 at the time. I still stand by that 8. I think this is a fantastic debut. Outside of any production criticisms I've given in this video, the other big thing that set it below the heights of like a 9 or a 10 are honestly the last stretch. While I think that like Out of Rage helps push Bring It Back and Addicted out there, and I think Love Lasso is a fun little one other instrumental tangent that I think lets their softness sort of dance into better realms, given the production that they were working with. I don't think it leads into Stress, or that Stress's Fade Away is as good of a punctuation for the record as The Journey there. But even that, gripe with that aside, it's still a really fun re-listen, considering it is such a breezy runtime. Which, people were generally into the sounds on here, but they have definitely, again, done better. I just want to sort of, one, give some love to this, because it was the start of this group that I think is definitely continuing to push for more heights. They are teasing a new album. That's also why I was like, let me reflect on Turnstile's roots a little bit. And also, because it's the only album of theirs I haven't talked about. And I just really wanted to show some love to this. There's some choice ideas in here that put it within its own realm outside of the discography that make it important to me. And I think are things that shouldn't be forgotten as this band continues to refine their ideas and experiment more into other aspects of their inspirations. This is a really breezy but well-concocted debut that I think that everybody should still go back to today. And I hope that you do after watching this. Have you heard Nonstop Feeling? Do you like Turnstile? Let me know your thoughts on their collective discography on this album in the comments down below. Are you excited for the new album? I surely am. But I've also had fun going back and spinning Nonstop Feeling. I'm going to go, though. If you did like this, give it a like. If you want to see more, consider subscribing. I drop 2 to 4 vids a week, depending on what I've got going on. I've got the Redacted for this month dropping tomorrow that I hope you're also excited for. I've been Valrek. You guys have a good day's lives and situations, and I'll see you another day.